A forbidden connection. From the father's perspective. Hello friends, today I'm sharing my story. One that is both deeply personal and extraordinarily complicated. It's a story of unexpected emotions, blurred boundaries, and the devastating consequences of stepping across a line that should never have been crossed. It started innocently enough. My garage had always been my retreat, a place where I could tinker with tools and lose myself in the hum of everyday life. That's where he and I first began to bond. He was Clara's boyfriend, young, polite, and eager to help out around the house. At first, I thought I was just being friendly, offering advice here and there, sharing the odd beer while working on my old truck. But soon, I realized it was more than that. There was something about him that drew me in. His laugh, his thoughtful questions, the way he seemed genuinely interested in hearing my stories. I chalked it up to harmless camaraderie, the kind of connection I'd always wanted with a son but never had. As weeks passed, our conversations grew more personal. He confided in me about his struggles with school, his ambitions, and his worries about his relationship with Clara. In turn, I found myself sharing more than I ever had with anyone. Old memories, regrets, dreams I'd long since buried. It felt natural, like we were two souls who understood each other in ways that words couldn't fully capture. Then, one night, everything shifted. Clara had gone away for the weekend with her friends, leaving the house unusually quiet. After dinner, we ended up in the living room with a bottle of wine between us. The air felt heavier, the silences stretching longer. He was telling me about a time he felt lost, unsure of his place in the world, and I felt an overwhelming urge to reassure him, to tell him he wasn't alone. When I reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, the touch lingered a moment too long. He didn't pull away. What followed was a whirlwind, a collision of emotions I hadn't allowed myself to feel for years. We were both terrified, yet neither of us stopped it. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. We had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The days that followed were a strange mix of exhilaration and guilt. Every stolen glance, every quiet moment together felt electric. Yet, the weight of what we were doing loomed over us like a storm cloud. We told ourselves it would end, that we could stop before anyone found out. But the heart rarely listens to reason. Then came the day everything fell apart. Clara came home earlier than expected. I heard her keys jingling in the lock, and my stomach dropped. He and I were in the living room, sitting too close, our voices hushed. There was no time to fix it, no way to erase the tension that hung in the air. When Clara walked in, she froze. Her eyes darted between us, suspicion flashing across her face. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice sharp. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Her gaze lingered on him, then on me. "Are you too?" She stopped herself, the realization dawning. The betrayal in her eyes was unbearable. "You're joking, right?" she whispered, though her tone said she already knew the answer. I tried to explain, to say it wasn't what it looked like, but I couldn't lie. The truth hung in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. Clara dropped her bag with a thud, turned, and stormed out of the house. The aftermath was brutal. Clara refused to speak to me. She moved out within days, leaving a terse note behind, "Don't contact me. I need time to think." For the first time in years, the house felt empty, not just because of her absence, but because of the silence that had settled between him and me. He tried to comfort me, to tell me we'd figure it out, but the guilt was too much. I was her father. I was supposed to protect her, to set an example. Instead, I'd done the unthinkable. Weeks passed, and the weight of what I'd done grew heavier. Clara eventually agreed to meet me, though her anger was palpable. "How could you?" she demanded, tears streaming down her face. "You're my dad. He was my boyfriend. Do you know how disgusting that is?" I tried to apologize, to explain that I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. But what excuse could justify betraying my daughter? "I trusted you," she said, her voice trembling. "And you broke that trust in the worst way possible." Her words cut deeper than I could have imagined. As for him, things became strained. The connection that once felt so magnetic now felt like a chain, binding us to a moment we both wished we could undo. We stopped talking as much, the weight of our actions driving a wedge between us. Eventually, he left, saying he needed to sort out his own life. I didn't blame him. I was left alone in the house, haunted by memories of what once was, both the bond I'd shared with my daughter and the relationship I'd formed with him. Looking back, I'm still not sure how it all went so wrong. Was it loneliness? Curiosity? A yearning for connection that I couldn't find anywhere else? What I do know is that I lost more than I gained. Clara hasn't spoken to me in months, and I don't know if she ever will. As for him, I've heard through mutual friends that he's doing well, though he doesn't talk about me or Clara. This story doesn't have a happy ending. It's messy, complicated, and filled with regrets. But it's mine, and I carry it with me every day. So, there you have it. A story of forbidden love, fractured relationships, and the devastating consequences of crossing a line that should never have been crossed. Let me know what you think. Could you forgive something like this? Would you? I'd love to hear your thoughts.